Finally got a real microphone. Hopefully that'll improve the quality of audio. I am just notifying everybody in Flux Trading Group that I am good to go. So let's give it some time for people to join. 10 minutes or so, and then we'll get underway. We'll do an analysis on Bitcoin, compare the 2017 bull run, discuss how corrections typically work, look at some similarities, differences. Then we'll look at some altcoins. Got a bunch of stuff we can go over. So let's sit tight while people flood in. Be finished giving everybody their notifications. And I'm going to pause that mic while I do that so you guys can't hear me singing. Although I have a wonderful singing voice. You just don't want to listen to me singing all the songs to Frozen. Just waiting for more people to join. For those who just got here, as I said at the start, gonna give it a few minutes while people flood in. So I just tagged everybody in the group, let them know we're live. I'm gonna go grab a glass of water, and yeah, we'll start in a few minutes. Just give it a little bit longer for people to join, and then we can get going. I'll do a quick bathroom break before we get started, but quickly, what do you guys think of my new mic? Does it sound good? This is the first time I'm using it. Finally got a mic. Oh, I'm getting an audio feedback loop. Stand by. Let me fix that. Alright, that'll be better. Yeah, so first time using it, just got it. The only time people complained about live streams was audio quality was something people always said. So I bought a good high-end external mic, and I'm hoping it sounds a lot better, but you guys let me know. Drop comments in YouTube chat or in Discord, I guess. I want to know if I got a good one or a shitty one. I had good reviews. It's HyperX. That's the brand that makes it. So, sounds good. Cool. All right, we'll run to the bathroom, and then we'll dive in. Where is everybody? Like 13 people? I kind of want more people to join, but it's fine. It's not a huge deal if they don't. Maybe I should just make it public. Then I get a lot of people to join. Nah, I have a better idea. All right, I'll be right back, and then we'll get started. A few more minutes, all right? just invited some other people. So I promise a few more minutes and we'll get started. What is it? 12:03 my time here. Just give it like, I don't know, 5 more minutes, the absolute most, and then we'll dive in. I had to trick people. I was like, instead of posting the link to the live stream on YouTube, I was like, if you want to join the live stream, join my Telegram or Discord server. The links are in the bio, or in my pinned tweet. Just to make everybody, if they want to do it, they got to join Telegram first. Although I don't really have any followers on Twitter, so it's not going to do any good because Jack Dorsey sucks. All right, one more minute and we'll dive in. I promise. I want to do a couple things. I want to see if we have any potential altcoin trades. Obviously, that's always good. I want to see if there's anything worth getting into, any fresh trades. Go over my existing trades, which at this point, I predicted a correction here flawlessly. I might add, my 168 extension wave 3 target couldn't be more precise. The issue is we're hyper bullish, and I'm going to get into that. I want to break that down, explain what that means, and do a quick, refresher for everybody who maybe people who hadn't seen my earlier updates on my models. But man, we are extraordinarily bullish. So when you get to a key resistance and a main target like this, it's easy to say, "Oh, I predicted this resistance." I just don't know how much we're going to correct. I think we might get a little bit of a sideways correction and potentially just break up through my resistance. That's very possible. That's happened several times of late. But I'll explain all that. Like I said, a few more minutes, and then we'll dive in, get into everything in a little more detail. And if you guys have any questions or if you have any topics you want me to cover, well, I invited people publicly. Usually I just do live streams for the premium group of my Flux Trading Group premium members, but since I invited everybody else, I usually do a lot of educational content during my live streams. I break down my models and techniques and strategies. I'll, teach people how to use Fibonacci or Elliott Wave, things like that. So if anybody has any questions or any topics you'd really like me to explain or any questions you think I might be able to answer, drop them in the YouTube chat and I'll see what I can do. All right, like I said, give me a few more minutes and then we'll dive in. All right, I'll be right back. What are you thinking on red and breaking up? If you guys want me to mention, like, topics, like I said, educational type stuff, I like talking about that more. I don't really want to do chart requests. If we have time, I guess I could do a couple. But I haven't looked at Ren in forever. I don't really have an updated model, and I probably don't have time to dive in from the beginning all the way up. So we'll see. See how much time we have. But no, it's fine. If there's time, I'll dive into it. Well, I'm going to run through, like, the alts. I'm just going to go through my watch list, but Ren isn't very high up on my watch list because I haven't been trading it of late, and given how aggressively bullish we are right now, I like to look at the models I have that are relatively up to date. So, I'm going to show you guys some of my recent trades, and those models are already pretty robust, where I've done substantial analysis, so I already have potential targets in mind, or I have some good support and resistance. So I will primarily review those, but if you guys do want me to look at stuff, by all means, it can't hurt to ask. If I have time, I'll be happy to check it out. 10 mil sell wall, 62K. Yeah, well, there's a sell wall and everything, because that's my resistance, baby. Man, how precise was that? Had to be within a couple dollars. That resistance call for the reversal. It just depends how far down we go. I'm revising that a little bit too. I'll break it down in a minute. Where did let me find my phone. I was always notoriously messy. And then I had kids, and it got 100 times worse. My nickname growing up was Messy Jesse. And now I have 3 other mini Messy Jessies. So everything is dramatically more messy than it ever was when it was just Jesse. All right. Let's get down to business. Of course, I forgot my water upstairs, but that's fine. We'll dive in, and then I'll take a break in a few and go up and get a drink. All right. So I guess the first thing is, the most important thing, as always, is Bitcoin, because it makes the world go round. So let me show you, for those who haven't been aware. If you go back and look at my last few videos, you'll see several updates on my BTC model. So generally, what I had been anticipating for Bitcoin was for this wave 3 to get to the 1618 extension at 62K. So it looks like we maxed out on this candle. That high using the Binance chart was 61,844. So that would be $80 off, $80 shy. Pretty much right where the 1618 was, where I had it planned, right? So very accurate model as far as getting that resistance. Now, I expected this to be a wave 3 target preceding a wave 4 correction. Now, we are hyper bullish, and that's something I want to mention. When you're in a hyper bullish cycle, 80% of the times when you anticipate a correction, you don't get a correction some of the time, and most of the time you'll get a correction, but you'll get more of a sideways correction. Now, we had a real correction over here. This was a real correction back in February. So if we look at the end of February, look at the daily chart, for instance, you'll see we had a very overbought stoke, right, preceding that correction. Similar to what we have now. We haven't actually been this high. But when you're hyper bullish, what happens is you get to these points where normally I would say, hey, we're about to correct. We're overbought on the stoke on multiple time frames. We're definitely going to correct here. And then you just keep going up because you're hyper bullish. And when you're hyper bullish, you become extra technical. You have to adjust your models to compensate for that, because essentially what happens is the market will behave beyond what the technical models suggest. They're still relevant, of course, right? It'll help you identify resistance. Like right now, I identified a resistance with flawless precision in advance, and I knew this is exactly what we were going to hit at the top of wave 3. Now, identifying a resistance is one thing when it's going to last for 5 minutes. Well, not literally 5 minutes, but it could be a very short-lived resistance, and we could push past it. So I knew that we were going to stop here, and I even entered a short, as I shared earlier. So I do have an open BTC short now. But I'm not necessarily confident in the correction, because, again, we're hyper bullish, and it's entirely possible we could push right above that 1618 extension. And if we do break above, we're probably going to go much higher. We're probably going to get close to my 75K target, which has been my main target for quite a while before we get a larger correction. So ideally, right, assuming the technical models hold, and we're not going to see that sort of hyper bullish pump beyond what the technical models suggest, I would expect a correction back to the prior top. The prior top being where we had a double top at 58K. Now, originally, my model had 58K as the top of wave 3, and then several video updates ago on my YouTube channel, if you go back and watch them, I revamped my model, and I instead identified the 1618 extension wave 3 target up at about 62K. So that's been my target going back several, I don't know, 4 or 5 days at this point. If all things play out the way they should, we would correct, come back down to that prior top at 58. It would also likely coincide right around where the 4-hour model has the 55 EMA, which is, for those who aren't familiar, my Ichima model includes 5 dynamic supports, and the EMAs are a crucial part of that. So a lot of the time you can identify the 55 EMA will be a really strong support, like this bounce was right here. We might see a similar situation where we come down and bounce right off the 55, sort of around that 58K level. So I do have an open short, but that's more of a hedge. I have a lot of open altcoin trades, which we'll review in a minute. And I'm hoping we can get a little bit of a correction before we make that final push up. If we push up now, the technicals don't make sense after a while, and you keep finding resistance levels that don't really, I mean, it'll be a short-term resistance. Like right now, I predicted this resistance flawlessly, but without getting an actual correction, I can't monetize that, right? I can't profit from that model. As accurate as it is, identifying it as a strong potential reversal point, I can't profit from it, so it's useless. I don't want to push up now because we're not going to be as aggressive. I'd like to correct a little bit so we can reset that momentum oscillator and build up that next push. That's why we got such a great aggressive push on this wave here, because we had a nice correction where we could cool off. And before that, we had the same thing happen earlier in the year. So that's what I would like to see. Best case scenario, we correct down to 58K, and then we make that last final push up into the 60s before a bigger correction in the higher 60s, maybe even close to 70K if we're lucky. This is probably going to be a short-lived correction. I really want to get a bigger correction that's going to go for potentially up to 2 weeks. Now, this correction was the smaller one. Not tiny, but this correction lasted, let's see, so that one was just over a week. If we can get a week-long correction, that would be enough time to cool off. And there were a lot of people who were pessimistic and thought the bull run was over, which is not remotely true. We'll get to that in a second. I want to go back and look at 2017 with you guys and show you, sort of what you're looking at here. It's entirely normal to have corrections, especially larger corrections, sometimes in excess of 20 or 30%. This correction was how long? What was this, 20%, I believe? Let's see. 26. This is a 26% correction. So think about that, right? We got a 58K, and then we lost 25%, over a quarter of Bitcoin's value, right? That's insane. It's a 26% correction, which of course spurs all the idiot boomers who have no idea about crypto markets to go all over CNBC and talk about how, oh, this is dangerous for these poor people in crypto because this is a bubble, and just look, it's collapsing right now. And everybody, all of us were laughing. We were like, yeah, okay, whatever you say, lady, it's going to be 60K in like 2 weeks, so shut the fuck up. It's completely normal, and we'll go back to 2017 just so I can show you guys that, because it's important to go back and see how it played out last time. It helps you kind of center yourself when you feel like you're getting too emotional, because if you let emotion get into your trading, you're going to get wrecked. You can't allow emotion to cloud your judgment. You can't start saying, hey, we're never going to go down, because we are going to go down, and you can't say, oh, the bull market's over just because we get a correction. You need to maintain your composure. You need to look at how we've performed in the past and look left, right? When analysts say look left, we're just saying look to the past. Look what's happened in the past, because identifying patterns in the past and identifying market behavior in the past will allow you to predict market behavior in the future. So I'd like to get a larger correction like that. I just don't think it's happening until we get all the way up to 75K. We might even get a larger correction once we get to 75K, because I still have 100K BTC pegged this year. But I don't want to go right up there. If you go right up there, like I said, the technicals are just irrelevant at that point. You want to be able to have predictable models, and if every time you're anticipating a correction, it breaks out up to a new high, then you're not really able to use your models to trade. And I want to be able to use my accurate models to trade, because without them, all you can really do is just invest long term and hold. You can't get in and out of trades and expect to make money unless you can predict what the market will do. So best case scenario, short-term correction, then a push up. A lot of the altcoins are going to follow, obviously. You'll see the same thing happen, what we normally see. There always are going to be anomalies. Luckily, one of those anomalies this time was FIL. This was an amazing trade I got into the other day. A couple nights ago, I got into 2 trades specifically, Key and FIL. I don't want to get into it in as much detail as I did in my other videos, but if you go back a couple nights, I had a video where I said I got stopped out of my key trade, but it's a really good learning opportunity, so I suggest everybody watch that video, because it's by design. For those who aren't familiar with my trading models and my strategies, what I do and how I trade, I do long-term and short-term trading, so I invest long-term and do swing trades. I also do short-term day trading and scalping, but in this case, I love having precision entries because my model is very precise, and I'm really good at identifying breakouts, as you can see. All of my entries on Key did exceptionally well, with the exception of a couple. I got in before massive breakouts, numerous occasions, here, in this case was the one time I was wrong, and then these 3 here. But look what happened here, and this is what I highlighted in that video I told you about. You should really go back and watch it. I actually got stopped out by a quick wick. So my stop loss was 2.5% below my entry on Key this time, right here. So that was my entry, and then I had my tight stop loss, just 2.5% below my entry, and that's my strategy. I set a tight stop loss, and most of the time, a wick doesn't stop me out. Most of the time, I get in and we break out into a strong bull run, and I make a massive return. In this particular instance, the wick came down and stopped me out of the trade, but it didn't bother me and it didn't upset me for 2 reasons. One, I have a long-term position in Key that I've been getting into nonstop and growing nonstop. Every time I share a trade with Flux Trading Group and I get into Key, except for the last 1 or 2 trades, every single time I say I'm also adding to my long-term Key bag because I anticipated such a massive run long-term. So that's one of my recent trades where I got stopped out, but my model still worked, right? It was still perfect. And if I can't trust my model, I can't get into trades like this. And then look at FIL. In the case of FIL, 35% profit on 1.2% risk. I bought into a trade. I identified a strong trendline support and my Ichimoku dynamic supports on the other time frames, along with the stochastic oscillator, which is a key aspect of my trading model. For those of you in my group, obviously you know everything I'm talking about here, but for people who aren't, I identified a highly probable breakout zone, and I was able to set my stop loss just 1.2% below my entry. So those precision entries, those low risk, surgically precise entries where I buy in, I predict a big pump, and my initial entry, I'm taking a tiny risk where I can only lose 1 or 2% on the trade, worst case scenario, but best case scenario, I could make 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 200% profit on the trade. Now, I'm bringing these up specifically because these are good examples of where my model was nearly flawless. In the case of Key, I got stopped by a rogue wick. That happens. There's nothing you could do about it, but my model was accurate. I mean, I predicted a breakout here, and it went on to break out for a 107% run. So I missed out on a 107% run, but at the same time, I have a large long-term position I've accumulated, so I'm still performing very well on Key, even without this latest short-term trade. Now, if I don't have a reliable model, I can't make trades like this. So, again, that's why I'm really hoping we get this larger correction. I also like the fact that, I also want that to happen because I opened a short on BTC in anticipation of getting rejected from that predicted top. I still can't get over how precisely I predicted the top here. I really hope it holds, because if it does, again, what's that going to confirm for me? That's going to confirm that my model is working. And again, if my model is working that well, to that level of precision, to that level of profitability, then I can trust it moving forward and I can utilize it moving forward. If we break out here and get back up above 62K, it's gonna suck, because then I'm gonna have to second guess my BTC analyses, because it's going to become, at that point, pretty much impossible to predict. At this point, I still have a very good model that allows me to predict what it's going to do. And if that model fails me here at such a crucial point, I'll have to second guess that. So that's what I'm looking for in BTC. We'll look at some other alts and see if we can find some trades. Before we do that, I want to go back and take a quick look at the 2017 bull run, because when we opened up and I explained to you how these bull markets work and how you can expect corrections along the way, it's really helpful to go back and look at prior events so you can get a much better understanding of what I mean. After we do that, then we can look at the alts and see if we can find any fresh trades. Again, since I expect Bitcoin to correct more, there are very few, if any, trades that I would get into here. I would pretty much stay out. Since Bitcoin's going to correct, it's going to take everything down with it. However, as my group very well knows, as demonstrated with both my FIL and KEY trades, if you can identify certain assets that are trading inversely, that are either holding stable or moving up as Bitcoin and the rest of the market is correcting, if you can catch those early, if you could spot those early, there's a few things you can look for. I'll show you what I mean. If you can spot those early, you can actually get into those situations where, you know, sometimes the entire market's red, you're looking at your watch list and everything is down 5, 10, 15%, but then there's like one or two coins that are pumping and they're up 15 or 20%. You can spot those early if you know what to look for. So we'll see if we can spot anything like that as well. If we can find some, we might be able to find some short-term entries that are low risk with a potential breakout scenario. So let's go back and look at the 2017 run, and I can show you what I mean. I've heard a lot of comments. There have been a lot of questions that I've gotten about... Oh, speaking of which, I'm going to read through the comments in a second. I know some people had questions for me. I still see people that are... I mean, we have this run now, but up until this run broke out of the ascending triangle, that breakout, obviously, I predicted that as well. But before that happened, there were so many pessimistic people who thought because of the size of the prior correction, that meant that we were done. So, again, this was a 26% correction, right? And this is the recent one, 25, 26%. Before that, we had another correction where we came back down 30%. So, on the way up, at a time when we are now up 500% plus, whatever it is now, 600% plus on the year, we're having multiple corrections where we are instantly dumping 20 to 30% of Bitcoin's market cap, essentially, in value, right? But it always provides you more opportunities. For those who are familiar with my Ichima model, by the way, I briefly mentioned this before, just look, imagine if you bought every time it bounced off the 55 EMA. Look how precise that entry would have been, just as an aside. The 55 was holding really, really well. This entire model of 55 has been on point. Again, another reason why I want my model to hold up now, because I want to be able to trade it with confidence moving forward. So yeah, let's take a look at 2017, and you'll see the same thing. I guess the daily will allow me to do it. Let me pull out this way. Yeah, weekly would make more sense, right? So you can see on the way up here, we do have these larger corrections. Now, we're parabolic, and it's pretty much exactly what happened in 2017. But it's all relative. If you expand this, you'll see that this is essentially just it's not a mini version of the parabolic run we're on now. It's pretty much the exact same thing. It's just a smaller scale, so it's harder to see unless you zoom in. So if you zoom in, you'll see we have very similar situations. Now, look, we had corrections, just like I just showed you, right? And then look what happens. This is it looks very similar to what we've experienced. A 40%, 37, 40% correction, right? Then it went up again, went on another solid run, and another 40% dump. So on the way up, before the final bull run to what was the all-time highs back then, I should actually overlay this, because that would, if I can overlay it, you'll see exactly what I mean. But we have these multi-week sideways corrections occurring early on when we're already beginning that parabolic rise. And if you look at how that's played out so far this time around, we have, let me get rid of some of these. We have these multi-week corrections as we're beginning the parabolic run. So think about that. Where we are right now in this bull run is essentially where we were
down here in that bull run. I mean, it's insane. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that that's some sort of guarantee. But what do we do in technical analysis? We look to the past to try to identify patterns and predict future behavior. So if you're looking at what's happened in the past, when we're getting into these parabolic bullish runs, you are initially going to have explosive moves up, and then you're going to have regular corrections back down. That's entirely normal. There's no reason to be pessimistic or expect the bull market to be over. But the reason why I continue to say we're very early on in this bull market is we actually haven't had that explosive run yet. So all the bullish action you've seen over the last few months is essentially what we experienced in this segment of 2017. As we got into the latter half of the year, then it went entirely insane. And that's what we still expect to happen this time around. That's why it's not outside the realm of possibility for Bitcoin to break $100,000 before the year is out. I think it's highly likely that we end up above 100K, and I think the best way to go about that is to get normal corrections along the way. Ideally, we get a large correction from 75. So, for those who might have shown up late, I broke down my current BTC model, and what I expect right now is we get a little bit of a retrace back to 58K, then we can make that next push up into the 60s. I'm not that clear. I can't tell you exactly what I think. I don't know what to make of it just yet. I have to spend some more time looking at it, but we do have a path to 75K. I just need to figure out what the best way to get there is. Once we get to 75K, that's when I want to get one of those larger corrections. I want to have a multi-week correction that brings us well back down substantially, at least a minimum of 25 to 30% correction, potentially even a 40% correction. I want to have a massive reset that allows all of our oscillators to reset over anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks. And if that can happen, we are running into a six-figure valuation on Bitcoin by the end of the year. I would bet a lot on that. I would say it's a very, very high probability that occurs. But we need a few things to happen, and we need to reset, because if you keep going up, all your oscillators are going to be overbought, and you're not going to be able to predict what's going to happen, and you're not going to have a reliable model. So that's why I wanted to show you the 2017. Hopefully, I don't have it as a side-by-side. It would be easier if I did. Maybe I can do a quick... Yeah, you know what? Let me do this. I can show you exactly what I mean. It looks really similar. I mean, it's actually kind of creepy how similar it looks. So this is the weekly from 2017, right? Now let's do this. Check it out. You see what I was talking about, right? Where we have these multi-week sideways corrections early on, where we're retracing 20 to 30% value, right? And look how early on that is in the process. We haven't even achieved that level of breakout bull market parabolic activity where you're essentially moving up. You're having entire weeks that are 50 to 100% weeks. So there's so much potential there. There's a lot to be excited for. So for people who are newer to the space, if you feel like it's too late to get into Bitcoin, you're wrong. It's never too late to get into Bitcoin anyway. Which reminds me, I've been talking to a lot of people lately who are newer to the crypto space and people who are unsure about whether or not the crypto space is right for them. There's a misconception and people who don't understand how these markets work in general, specifically how the crypto market works. And one of the common questions I get is it too late with Bitcoin at this price, with this valuation? Didn't I just miss the boat? And it's a very simple explanation. If you're not worried about what the price will be in a day, a week, or a month, and you're willing to wait long term, it is probably the single best potential investment on the face of the earth. And I'll tell you why. It's very simple. It's all supply and demand. I just talked to a couple of my group members today, and we talked about exactly that. If the analogy that I used is, imagine what would happen if tomorrow there's some scientific report that says we're never going to find any more oil. Nowhere on the face of this planet will we ever discover another drop of crude oil. What would essentially happen is the price of gasoline would go from $3 a gallon to $30,000 a gallon instantaneously. That's what would happen. When you have an asset with a limited supply and a constant demand, the valuation is infinite if you cut off that supply. And that's exactly what we have with Bitcoin. The only reason Bitcoin hasn't gone into that astronomical moon zone yet, where you're talking about 6 or 7 figure valuations for a single Bitcoin, is because the demand is nowhere close to where it could potentially be. There are hedge funds gaining interest, of course. There are more and more retail investors getting in every day. But think about it. The big banks haven't even gotten in officially. They consider it to be too risky, and they don't even understand what they're dealing with here. We're talking about a situation where gold or oil, something like that, a commodity that has a constant supply and a constant demand, imagine overnight the supply was capped. And they said, we're never going to find another gold rock. We're never going to find another mountain with a gold mine. We're never going to find another drop of oil under the ground. So whatever we have now is what we're going to have. The price of those commodities would pump to an astronomical degree instantaneously. So it's a very exciting time. It's not too late to get in. And that's pretty much what I wanted to go over on Bitcoin, because I know we have some new people here, and I thought it would be good just to get that out of the way. Both share just how bullish this model is of what we're seeing right now, just how much potential we have for the next year. We are just getting started. And then for people who think that it's too late to get into crypto, you couldn't be more wrong. You are incredibly early at this point. For those, it's actually funny. My old account, on my old Twitter account, when I actually had lots of followers, thanks again, Jack, I used to post something all the time, and everybody loved it. And it was like the most interactions I ever got on a tweet. But I would always tweet to people who came up in 2017 and 2018 with us. And I would say, guys, for those of you who got hit hard in 2018, just remember, the way that you guys are looking at the OGs now, they're going to be looking at us like that in 2, 3, 4 years. They're going to look at us and say, oh my God, you guys got in that early. And you know what? For people who are just getting into this space now, people who didn't even have Bitcoin until today, and they just bought their first, $100 worth of Bitcoin, in 3, 4, 5 years, people are going to be looking at you as the lucky guy who got in very early. That's how much potential there is, because we haven't even tapped into the potential supply, the potential demand for this product, for Bitcoin. So, like I said, very limited supply and astronomical demand that we haven't even tapped into yet. It's incredible what's coming. So that's it. That's my spiel about Bitcoin and my intro stuff. Let me run through the comments in the YouTube chat and see if a couple people had questions. We'll go through those. And then after that, we can run through some of the charts and see if we could potentially find some trades that are worth getting into. There might be some out there, so it's worth looking at the altcoins. Again, when Bitcoin's correcting, and again, I'm expecting Bitcoin to correct. In those situations, normally you don't want to get into new trades because they're just too risky. Everything typically corrects with Bitcoin, as most of you guys know. But there are always a few anomalies. There's always going to be a few trades that manage to pump and manage to stay bullish even while Bitcoin's correcting. And there are a few easy ways to spot those early on, and we'll run through that. I'll show you what I mean. All right, so who, if anybody, had questions on here? Joel, you want to learn basic TA first before joining a premium member of the group? Well, if you want to join the premium member, then you can work with me directly. You can get on the phone. I can talk to you about stuff and explain this stuff to you. And we do live streams with the premium members all the time. And if you have basic questions that are really noob questions, basic stuff, we can still go over it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Everybody started out at some point, so people in the group will ask questions during the live streams like people are right now. You could ask, how do I sign up for Coinbase? I don't even care. It could be the simplest question. Never feel bad about it. Always ask those questions because those are the most important ones usually. But if you wanted to wait to join, then that's totally fine too. Whatever you're comfortable doing. I'd love to have you join. I'd love to help you learn either way. What your colors mean on your watch list on the right. What they mean is that I'm a messy slob and I can't keep track. I had a system and it fell apart, and then I came up with a new system and that system fell apart. So the system I currently have is anything that's labeled with a color has a color. That's the extent of it. And anything that doesn't have a colored label doesn't have a colored label. I got nothing. At first I did have it. I had it separated out where different pairings, depending on what they were paired with. And then I had different asset types, so I would have like DeFi tokens versus privacy coins, things like that, and it got messy. Because what happens is when you set this in TradingView, if the last one that I labeled red, the next time I click one, it's just going to do red by default. And I would do that quickly without realizing it and switching it, so it just got too messy. So the colors don't really mean anything now. Usually I'm actively trading things that do have some flag, or I've recently actively traded it. So if it doesn't have a flag, like KSM, I probably haven't traded it in a couple weeks. That's usually how it works. Not all the time, but you could use that, I suppose, to have a good system. Mine just fell apart and got too messy, so I gave up on it. Let's see. Hero said, Joel, there's a lot of good education on the premium group. This is true. Lots of good educational stuff that's down to the basics. So if you want to learn the basics, hit me up. I got lots of good stuff in the group. What are you thinking on Ren? I've entered 50% position here, and KSM continuation from this price upwards. If I have a few minutes at the end, it's already pretty late. If I have a few minutes, I'll take requests, and I can look at Ren, like I said before. Must an Elliott Wave for his models. I don't use Elliott Wave on most of my charts. I could just show you really quickly. I do for important stuff, like if I'm coming up with an analysis for Bitcoin and I'm trying to anticipate where we might see a correction or that next impulse wave, and I want to identify the potential impulse and the potential motive waves or corrective waves, then I'll use Elliott Wave. But it's not that much of a necessity. I don't use Elliott Wave on every chart. I'll usually use it on the majors more as well. But if I just scroll through here, most of these charts don't have any Elliott Wave counts, really. I used to use it a lot more, but when you're in a bull market like this, you have to adjust your TA strategy, and I'm not using it nearly as much as I was. So it's by no means a must, but it's definitely something you want to learn at some point because it's an extremely, extremely valuable skill to have. Which charts are you using? What did you mean by that? I'm not sure what that question was. I do trade Ocean. I don't have any Ocean positions going right now, but I've traded Ocean several times. I actually have a long-term bag of Ocean. It's not that large though. It's not one of my larger long-term bags. It's a pretty small one. So some of my long-term positions, for those in the group, you obviously know this, sometimes I just get into a trade and I say, hey, there's an incredible amount of potential on this particular coin. I'm going to get in long-term, right? I'm buying in right now. I'm not setting a stop loss, or I'm going to set a pretty low stop loss because I think this could be a potential 4 or 5x, maybe even upwards of an 8 to 10x. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I just get into a short-term trade that's a low-risk trade, and I also get some as a long-term position. So say I spot Algo, and I'm like, hey, look at Algo. I could buy right now, set my stop loss 2% below my entry. Perfect low-risk trade. Tons of breakout potential with this current model and the way it's currently forming. And at the same time, I might also buy, if I buy $10,000 worth of Algo in a short-term trade, I might also say, all right, I'll get $500 worth of Algo just for like a long-term thing, and I'll set it aside. So in the case of Ocean, that was sort of what I did. I was making short-term trades with Ocean, and I would accumulate little bits here and there. So I don't have a very large position, and I haven't been charting it much, so I can't give you that much input on Ocean. I know some people who are all about it and have been talking about it. Some people who I'm friends with, some people on crypto Twitter who I'm friends with have been sharing it with their followers and their communities. So I'll probably dive into it and spend more time on it when I have a sec. It's definitely on my list. But right now I'm focusing on several other DeFi projects that are slingshots. They're fucking catapults. The amount of potential on these things is astronomical. So that's one place where you guys should certainly invest some time and energy doing research and identifying potential investments. The DeFi space is going to continue exactly what it's been doing, which is fucking exploding. It is it's been incredible so far, and we're just getting started. What I just showed you on Bitcoin, imagine that, but with these DeFi tokens. As some of you probably know, a lot of these DeFi projects have already done a 20x, right? So imagine if Bitcoin is this early in this potential bull run, where we might continue up for several more months before getting any substantial reset or corrections. For many more months, rather, I should say. Imagine what will happen to some of those DeFi projects that have already done a 10 or a 20x. We're talking about massive potential returns here. So that's where I've been focusing some of my energy, and I advise you guys do the same thing. It's definitely where the money is. What charts are you using? Yeah, I didn't know what you meant by that. Where are you located in the U.S.? Here in King of Binance, not sure if I should. So for those who don't know, as I advise everybody in the group, everybody should be on Binance. Binance US is trash. I'm in the US. All you need to do is set up a new account with a new email address. Go to Gmail, Yahoo, create a new account, johnnyAppleseed@gmail.com. Sign up for a new Binance account using that email address, and don't KYC your account. As long as you use a VPN when you sign up and every time you connect to the site, you're good to go. I have a VPN running on every device I have 24/7, so it's never an issue. If you ever do get busted and if Binance flags you, there are several times where you just get a warning and they send you an email that says, we have identified you as a United States prohibited user. You may be required to close your account. Then as long as you turn your VPN back on and you make sure that it stays on and you connect normally, they'll stop sending you the emails and everything just goes back to normal. Sometimes they'll flag you for good and they'll say, hey, we're shutting down your account. When that happens, they're not stealing your money. Binance is not stealing anybody's money. Don't worry. They have Binance US and they have billions of dollars invested in it. If they stole a single penny from somebody, they would get shut down instantly by the US government and become enemy number one. They're looking for any excuse to shut down crypto companies. They're already launching a bullshit investigation into Binance. So they're not stealing your money. What would happen is they'll say, we've identified you as a prohibited user. We're closing your account. You have 2 weeks to empty your funds and send them to another wallet or exchange. If you fail to do it within the next 2 weeks, you won't be able to log into your account anymore, and you'll have to request our assistance from customer service, and that may take weeks to get your funds back for you. So that's essentially the worst case scenario. If you get caught with a new account on Binance, they make you close the account and you have to start a new one and you could start all over again. As long as you're using a fresh email address and as long as you're using a VPN service, then you're good to go and you can keep using Binance, and I suggest everybody does. I also wouldn't send any assets back and forth between the Binance US and Binance account. Alright, what was next? Not sure if I should VPN something. Kraken sucks. Not many coins. Low liquidity. Lots of slippage. So Lucas, like I just said, same thing. Stick to Binance. Just open a new Binance account if you have to. And if your current Binance account hasn't been flagged as a US prohibited user, then just keep using it until it is. But you definitely want to use a VPN. So as Els said, the COVID relief package. So people are getting stimulus money, and that's not really actually all there is to it. That spending is going to drive up all markets. All the banks are predicting an insane level of GDP growth over the next year. We're going to see, before COVID, we had the best economy in 100 years. Well, in really pretty much in a generation or two. It was insane how well the economy was performing before COVID. So it was artificially suppressed because of COVID. It's not like there was some fundamental reason why the economy contracted or there was a recession. Nothing like that happened. It was artificially forced by the government shutting down businesses. So as soon as the government say, okay, you can open your businesses back up again, everything is going to go right back to where it was. Some businesses are going to be closed, obviously, and if they get relief, they can reopen. So it's not exactly where it was, but we did have the strongest economy ever, and we're going to go back to having the strongest economy ever as long as we get back to business as usual, which is exactly what's occurring right now. That's separate from the COVID relief package. That's separate from people getting money that they're going to use to buy crypto and other investment opportunities. So keep that in mind. All markets are going to utterly explode. And I think the crypto market is going to blow people's minds when they see that we're just getting warmed up and we're actually quite early in this process. So, yeah, exactly what you said, that is part of it. The COVID relief package is certainly part of it. Knox Zero is here for the entire 2018 ass whooping, as were many of us. I posted that. I was like, for people who are new, you guys don't know what we went through for this. We fucking earned this. Do you know how many goddamn times people had to post that stupid, "Where are we now?" cheat sheet? Are we in depression? Are we in this part? Are we in acceptance? Are we in denial? I hated that goddamn meme. People would constantly post it, and it's just like, it was so stupid. That was so annoying. We had 2 years of that. So we deserve this. We put in our time, and we deserve this bull run. And for those of you who came late, it's not too late. You're still early. You're still here way before the rest of the crowd hasn't even gotten here yet. So make sure you invest some time and energy into learning and understanding how these markets work, how to trade, how to manage risk, how to identify a proper trading strategy based on your risk profile, your personal needs. If you can do that before more people flood into this market along with their retail money, you're going to see some explosive returns. So you should be excited. There's a lot to look forward to. Oh, what's up, dude? From BEP20 Discord. For those who don't know, I set up a new Discord server for people who this happened to. So if you're new to crypto and dealing with exchanges, so there's an issue where if you go on Binance and you go to send Ethereum or any token on Binance, you have an option and you can specify the ERC20 address, right? So that ERC20 is on the Ethereum blockchain. That's your Ethereum address. So if you wanted to send yourself Ethereum, or if you wanted to send yourself USDT or BNB, anything that's running on the Ethereum blockchain, you can send to that address, and it would appear in your account, assuming the wallet supports it, or you have to manually add it. But that's how it works. Now, there's another blockchain from Binance Smart Contracts. So you can also get an address on the BSC blockchain. When you send funds out of Binance, it gives you an option to use either or. You can use a couple different options. There's also the Omni network, for instance. So if you're sending USDT, you can send USDT to an Omni address or an ERC20 address. There's a different it takes a different amount of time to send it, depending on it. There's different costs and fees involved. There are a lot of variables, but there are all these different networks, and there are very many of them. If you send it to the wrong network, it's pretty much always recoverable in most cases because of how these things work. However, if you're sending it to the exchange, the old adage, not your keys, not your money, is quite literal. With the Coinbase exchange, there were a lot of people, and I believe there are millions of dollars just floating in the abyss right now, and I'm trying a few things. I'm talking to a lawyer. I'm seeing what I can do, potentially reaching out to Brian Armstrong to see if something can be done. There's a lot of money. One of the guys in my group, one of the members of my group, has $30,000 worth of link that he sent to Coinbase, and since Coinbase doesn't support the Binance Smart Contracts chain, you have to send it to an ERC20 address. But when you're sending the funds in Binance, that's not entirely clear, and it's a little bit confusing for some people. So they put in the wrong address because they were enticed by the much smaller fee. So what essentially happened is that money was sent to, he sent $30,000 worth of link to his account on Coinbase. But he can't see that money because Coinbase doesn't support Binance Smart Chain. So it's there, it's in his account, it's in his wallet, but it's invisible and inaccessible. Coinbase is directly competing with Binance and likely will have their own blockchain, so they might never add support for BSC. So that money, in theory, could always sit in limbo and never get recovered. And if you had the private keys, that's all you would need to recover those funds. So if you had the recovery phrase, if you go and set up a MetaMask wallet, you know how it gives you a 13-word passphrase so you can recover that wallet, a 12-word passphrase. So if you had that passphrase, you can recover those funds easily, but Coinbase doesn't give you that information. They don't give you your keys, they don't give you anything. And that's the issue. And there are people who have altogether, there has to be millions, potentially tens of millions of dollars, because the amounts that I've been told, I have helped several people retrieve their funds, because if you don't send it to Coinbase Exchange, but you send it to Coinbase Wallet, you can actually recover those funds because you can get that backup key. So that's what he's referring to from the BEP20 Discord. I set up a Discord group, so if anybody here has had that situation happen to them, if you have any funds that you sent to Binance Smart Chain instead of the ERC20 address to Coinbase, and now you can't access those funds, feel free to DM me or message me on any platform, and I can add you to that group, and we're trying to figure out a solution so everybody can get their money back. Yeah, Lucas, you can do as far as your other question about what DeFi's I like, there's a lot. Just Sushi, Dot, Cake. Cake is like our favorite right now. A lot of the guys in the group have been accessing over it, going ham on Cake. We've been staking it and doing a whole bunch of stuff on PancakeSwap, as well as just investing in the tokens on Binance, because they've had a couple insane breakouts that I got into that were pretty precise. What was your other question? Yeah, VPN you can run on your phone. You can download ExpressVPN. Actually, if you use my referral code for ExpressVPN, I get a free month and you get a free month. So I essentially, because I've referred so many people, I just have it free forever. But you get a free month if you use my link. If you want, DM me on Telegram or something. I'll give you my link. You could sign up for it if you don't already have one. But they have an app for the phone. So you download it from the phone, you download it on your computer, and no matter what device you're using, you're running your VPN and you're good to go. But think about it. Just because you briefly disable your VPN and connect to Binance, they're not going to shut down your account. How many people work around the world and take business trips to the United States? If somebody who lives in Canada commutes to work, like there could be somebody who lives in Toronto who commutes to Niagara, New York every morning and drives 40 minutes over the border to go to a job in the United States. So while he's here, he has an IP address from a US cell carrier. Is Binance gonna shut down his account and blacklist him because he happens to be on an American IP? No. So they're not that strict about it for that reason, but they'll give you a warning, and then as long as you get back on that VPN, you're usually good. But just to be safe, I always advise everybody, make sure your VPN's always on. All right, let's dive in. We'll go through the watch list. Let's see if there's any altcoins that are worth trading. Again, if Bitcoin does correct like I've been predicting it would and should, then the altcoins most likely aren't going to do much, but there are always a few. I'm looking at my watch list already right now. I see Hot, IOTX, BTT, my FIL trade is doing really well. So there might be a few others like that are actually holding and outperforming Bitcoin. It's worth checking those out. It's actually better to use the USDT pairing for this because I know some of you guys are going to ask. Thought I heard something. All right, were there any other questions on there? If not, we'll dive in. Fred's talking about when I called the bottom. Yeah, I actually called 3280 was my bottom call, like 8 months before we bottomed out at 3200 in 2018. That was nuts. That was such a precision call. It was awesome. Of course, people were talking shit and they were mad at me for being bearish. People on Twitter would be like, such a scumbag, stupid bear, you don't know what you're talking about, we're going to the moon. It's like, dude, no, we're going to correct first. I don't know why people are so terrified of corrections. It's a good thing, especially if you understand how the technical models work. Like I was just telling you guys, right? Look at the stochastic oscillator right here. We have a clear wave on the stoch. We have a move up on the stoch, and the price goes up, right? Stoch comes down like this, and the price comes down. See that? Look. So run up along with the price, run down on the stoch, come down on the stoch. Run up on the stoch, run up on the price. Now we're resetting on the stoch and coming down. We're resetting on the price and coming down. We want that to happen. If that doesn't happen, I can't predict these precise reversals. Since this model is working really well, I can tell you that Zcash very well might be a good buy when it bounces off the top of the Ichimoku cloud here, which it's probably going to do. Most likely, we're going to get 2 to 4 more candles in the 4-hour model, and as long as this holds above the top of the cloud, it's going to be a big bounce next. Write this down, take a picture, whatever. I'm telling you, you're going to come back and say, holy shit, you were right. That's exactly what's going to happen. If the top of the cloud fails, though, we're going to come all the way down to a minimum to the 55 EMA here and potentially lower. So the top of the cloud is going to be pretty key here. The next stop, again, is the EMAs, but the top of the cloud is the first big test. But if we just keep going up and we don't get these little corrections, right, then how are you going to predict when to buy in at the bottom? It makes no sense. It's a good thing. You want to have corrections, and you want to have them often. You just want to overall go up over time. It's fine. If we correct 50% every other week, that's totally fine, as long as the weeks that we're not correcting, we're doing 200% up, right? You want to get those big moves up and a small move down. Big move up and a small move down. That's going to create an aggressively bullish uptrend, and that's what we want to see. So, anything worth getting into now? Does anybody else have any other questions, by the way? If you do, drop them in the chat, because after we go through, it's getting pretty late, after we go through my watch list here and just check out, we'll check out 5 or 10 coins and see if there's anything worth potentially trading. After we do that, I'm probably going to end the stream. So if you have questions, you should go type them in the YouTube chat now. So again, this FIL trade of mine, right up here at about 32%, a little bit above where we are now, I sold a chunk. I forgot how much. I think I sold about like 40 or 45% of my position just to take some profit. Looks like it was 40%. So I sold 40% of my position. I'm still holding 60% of that position left. And again, I think we're going to correct here, but long term, I think we're going to do really well. Even if it were to dump to zero, I actually have to move my stop loss up here, which I haven't done yet. I'm also just noticing now, which I never drew it before, but there was an ascending triangle here. Just worth noting. Where is it? Here we go. Before we finally broke through. Yeah, we actually did have an ascending triangle there, but whatever. That was a really great precision trade. Again, 1.2% risk to start and 35% breakout. Awesome trade. Now, I wouldn't do anything with it now. Obviously, we just went parabolic. We need to reset a bit, but this is what I want to see. I want to see things that are green while the rest of the market's red, but early on. We want to identify things that between the hourly and the 4-hour, they're close. to the Ichimoku dynamic support. So that could be the 55 and the 99 EMA. It could be the Ichimoku cloud. And you also want to pay special attention to the Stoke model down below. And if you find something that does look like it may have some potential, one of the main things you'll want to look at is the Stoke. You want to make sure the Stoke has reset and we're starting to get a bullish reversal and you have a clean wave. The first thing you want to do is look left. Like if you look at a particular chart and the Stoke's all over the place, it's not very helpful. But if you do look at a chart and you see like back here where we had these clean repetitive cycles, wave up on the Stoke, full wave down, full wave up, full wave down, full wave up, full wave down. What happened during that cycle? Full wave up on the price, full wave down on the price. Full wave up, full wave down. Exactly in lockstep, flawlessly with the Stoke oscillator, right? Then we start getting erratic, and then the Stoke's kind of zigzagging all over the place like this. Then it's not reliable. So obviously we're just dumping right here. The Stoke, you're not getting these clean repetitive cycles, so it's not very helpful. But if it happens to be locked in at that point in time where you're getting these full, clean waves, nice repetitive cycle over and over again, you can extrapolate an extension of that cycle and anticipate its continuation. So even right now, this does look really bullish, turning up with a Stoke like this, but it's not as bullish as it would be if we did have a recent, cycle like I just showed you, where it's like 3 or 4 times where you get those full waves that are exactly what's going on. Now, I will say with FTM, it does look reasonably bullish already for a couple other reasons, but I probably wouldn't buy it unless we came back down and tested that 222 EMA again. You can see one of my each of my dynamic supports is the 222, right? And I mean, this is actually a good image. This is a perfect example because look, the 55 EMA was really strong support on all these candles. It finally failed, and then the next each of my dynamic support was the 99 EMA. Then it held. We got back above the 55 EMA, and look, hit right there, big bounce right up. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4 candles in a row that held on that support till it eventually dumped. When it finally dumped and the 55 EMA failed, what happened? We got a big bounce right off the 99. Rejection right from the 55. Bounce and support right along the 99. You can see the 99 and the 55 EMA as well as the 22, for whatever reason, happen to be major reversal points. I mean, bounce, reversal, bounce, reversal, bouncing back and forth between the 55 and the 99. It's crazy. Such a simple model, but I was able to identify these EMAs that just work incredibly well in identifying those trend reversals. And it's frankly probably one of the simplest models anywhere. I just want to look at FTM in a little bit more detail and see if we can find any sort of worthwhile... No, not really. We don't have a clean wedge or anything there. So I do like it, but I wouldn't get in here. If it was right on top of the 222 EMA, I would probably make a play on it. All right. What's next? What else might have a potential move here? I've been loading up on ADA, by the way, just as a long-term thing. Just throwing that out there. VTH, oh man, this was one of my babies. This was the first 10x I believe I had this bull run. Starting from early on in February, from that initial entry, I had a 10x and didn't even sell. I sold some and then I bought some back. So I'm still holding a decent position there. Now, there's actually a very, very strong ascending triangle here. One of the things you'll learn, especially if you join my group and I teach you all of my time travel magic tricks, is you have no idea that there's an ascending triangle here. You couldn't see it in a million years. But trust me, it's very easy to see, and it's clear as day. You look at enough charts, you conduct enough analyses, you spend enough time researching and practicing and studying and working with somebody like me who can mentor and teach you all the things that I use. You put in the time, eventually you're going to start seeing these things. And with the naked eye, it's clear as day. Look at this. I mean, you should be able to spot this with the naked eye, no problem. topside resistance, major topside resistance, while we're getting quite strong trendline support right there, right? That topside resistance, that's major resistance right at 7,300. So that is some killer resistance up there. We just got rejected from it again, right as the Stochastic is turning down on the 4 hour. Also keep in mind, look what we have here. A very clean, repetitive cycle on the stochastic oscillator, up and down, up and down, up and down, and it perfectly coincides with what we're seeing on the price action, right? So right now we are turning south. We're coming back down. What happened the last time we came down from this in this setup? We had this correction. The time we came back down and turned bearish was this little move down. So that's exactly what's happening now, right as we're getting rejected from the top. So what I expect to happen on VTHO, I think we're going to come back down and bounce on the EMAs again. While we're here, what was I just teaching you guys about the 55, the 99 EMA, my Ichimoku model? Look at this. Look at all these bounces. 55 EMA, 55 EMA, 55 EMA, 55 EMA, 55 EMA. What's that, like 7 candles in a row right there, all bouncing off the 55 EMA. So I think we're going to retrace here, and you can see the yellow line and the blue line. That's the 55 and the 99 EMA here on the 4-hour model. Here's the 55, and here's the 99. They happen to coincide pretty closely with that trend line support. I think we're going to continue correcting all the way down to where that trend line support is, along with the EMAs potentially. If we can get, it doesn't have to be perfect. We don't really have to go all the way to that trend line support, but it would be really nice if it at least could get down to that 55 EMA right here. And then once that happens, we're going to break out, and we're going to make another attempt to break through the top. When that eventually does happen, it's going to be an explosive breakout. An ascending triangle of this size and formation, we're going to have an aggressively bullish breakout. This thing is going to be up, probably up to that 1 penny target, almost within a day or two once we bust through this topside resistance. I'm quite confident that that resistance is holding back a major run. The amount of times we've attempted to push through with wicks too, I think there's a very high probability of a massive breakout. We just need that resistance to fail. But there's nothing worth getting into now in VTHO, like a fresh trade. I wouldn't get into a fresh trade on it now. I'm just talking about what I would expect. If you like VTHO and you want to get in, again, you know, I made 1,000% on this thing. But if you want to get into VTHO, you could wait till it gets back down to that support zone. That would be the right way to play it. All right, what's next? Let's see. Let's take a look at a few more. I really want to find a potentially good, trade here. But again, while the whole market corrects, it's just so difficult. I know all about Cody too, Fish. I can't get into it now. I'm really tired. I just wanted to run through some of my watch list with you guys. But come back to the group, man. I don't know what happened to you. You left the group a while ago, right? You should rejoin. We can go over all that stuff together. But no, I'm definitely down. Anything else you want me to look at, shoot me a DM, and I'm happy to take some pointers. That's the thing. It's like, just because I'm good at trading and I have a group and everything, you guys would be amazed at how much I rely on you and how much I rely on the group. People in the group all the time are like, Jesse, look, your Ichimoku model is perfect on this particular chart. I can't look at every chart, but the guys know my model and they know what I look for, so they'll give me a heads up and tell me to check something out, and that might become one of like my biggest trades. So it's pretty awesome having a whole team of people that know your strategy, like up, down, and sideways. So Reef, if that can come down to a good support, there might be a potential move there. But Reef, I have a nice long-term bag, and I suggest everybody get some amount of Reef to hold long-term. Because there's massive potential there. All right, I'm just going to run through a few more. So my ZEC trade, again, is doing really well. Coming back down to the top of the cloud could be a good time to buy, but it depends whether or not the stoke gets down lower. If we actually hold where we are right now, in this general area, if we manage to not touch the top of the cloud until like 2 more candles from now, then that'd be a different story. All right, let me see something else. That wouldn't touch actually. IOTX, HOT. My IOTX trades, that's another one. I'm up an astronomical amount for my long-term trades. And these were really good precision entries. There's no new entry to be made in IOTX here. It's obviously pumped as it is. Same thing with HOT. Nowhere to get in there is the long-term. For a short-term trade, I mean, there's nowhere to really get in. That's low risk for a short-term trade. But if you bought some for long-term, there's still a ton of potential there. So same with IOTX and HOT. Although with HOT, you're more likely to get good short-term trades because it comes back down. It's a little bit more reasonable. I don't know. IOTX feels like once it's in a trend like this. Well, actually, no. It came pretty close to the 55 EMA. You might be able to get into some good IOTX short-term trades. It's high right now, but there's probably something you could do there to get in. The last dash trade I got into was not really a huge mover, and it's just sort of hovering in the middle of the cloud. Again, that stoke, all these elevated stokes. If I can find one thing with a really low bottomed out stoke that looks it's starting to reverse and turn bullish. Now, I will say RVN actually looks really good here. Stoke aside, it's holding really well while everything else corrects. You can see my entry predictions were not only perfect, 3 out of 3, but we can reuse that. And there's an additional trend line here too. Hold on. That trend line is nice looking, and it goes right along the top of the cloud. So the top of the cloud is another one of each of my dynamic supports, right? So I got into this trade with the group, and that was one of those surgical entries. Look at that. My entry was my stop loss was only 1% below my entry. That was such a precise trade because we had such a strong trend line support. We had the top of the cloud, one of my key each of my dynamic supports, and it held perfectly. Absolutely perfectly. And sure enough, it's sitting in profit right now. And I would say right here, we have a nice strong trend line. So in theory, if you were to buy RVN right here with a stop loss like 3% below your entry, you have a strong trend line support, and then you have the top of the cloud protecting your stop loss. So if it goes down, you don't get stopped out. That said, I think that's a little high for this trade. Instead, what I would do here, I'd want to keep my potential risk and exposure to under 2.5% at the most. So I would set my Why do I keep doing that? My mouse is freaking messed up. All right, so if you're looking to get into RVN, again, a lot of potential here. You could buy in and just place your stop loss below that trend line support, about 1.8% below your entry. That would be just like my FIL trade, because I showed you this FIL trade where I identified this trend line, right? So that was such a great, strong trend line. I was able to buy in right on that trend line with a tight stop loss of only 1.2%. You could theoretically do almost the exact same thing with RVN. You could do something very similar with RVN. And I just personally, if you were looking to get into it, I think it's a really good potential trade here. I think you could buy it a little bit lower. So right on where the trend line support is. So I'm going to leave this trade open. I'm not going to add to it here, but I would set a buy order kind of like right there, just where that trend line support is. Maybe ever so slightly higher. So a little bit of a new low, especially since we still got to come down on the Stoke a little bit. Because if this support structure holds, we're going to be launching up off of the clouds, just straight up. There is quite a bit of bearish divergence on the RSI. That's a little bit concerning, but it's not terrible considering it's the well, yeah, if you were to buy here and place your SL 2% below your entry, that would be a good buy. That would be worth it. I would do that. All right, I think I'm going to go to sleep. I'm starting to get so tired. I'm just going to go really fast just to see if there's anything that looks like there could be a good trade. Yeah, Joel, I use Fibonacci all the time. All the time. Oh yeah. BTT crushing it. Forgot about that one too. Now I do have a nice BTT bag from a while back as well. Let's do... All right. Man, look at that. My XMR model, also low risk, 1.7% below my entry. Immediate breakout, ran, top of the cloud, rejection, bottom of the cloud, and the EMA's bounce. All those Ichima dynamic supports. Perfect. Similar situation here to what we saw with Zcash, except we're just starting to turn down, and the top of the cloud would have to hold. I don't know. I wouldn't touch it right now, but if it comes down to the top of the cloud, XMR and Zcash would both be a really good play. Both of them would be perfect. Now, MTL looks sexy. MTL is giving me a little bit of that spidey sense. We got a falling wedge, which happens to be my favorite bullish formation for anticipating breakouts. We have a very long and deeply reset Stoke oscillator. Back to the hourly. Look at that. So the 55 EMA, tons of support. I finally failed, and then the 99 was holding, right? So in the case of MTL, I would want to place my stop loss. I would want to buy in and then place my stop loss below the 55 EMA. So if I bought right here, my stop loss can probably go about 2.5% below my entry. I'd like it to be a little bit lower for this trend line. Actually, no, the trend line support would really be... I might do this. I might make a play on MTL. But I would set my buys a little bit lower. So my overall risk is under 2%, maybe 1.75%. I think I can do this with 1.5%, to be honest. That's what I would do. So I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to grab some MTL with a tight stop loss, just 1.5% below my entry. Now again, oh, you know what? Hold on. I'm just noticing this prior top where we got rejections there. I'll set my SL. I can afford a little bit extra risk. I'm going to set my stop loss 2% below my entry. Now, I'm not buying right here. I'm setting my buy orders a little bit lower, right at like 1.442. So, in fact, I might be able to fill this right now. So, hold on. I'm going to do that on my phone really quick and get my order in. I got... All right, so that would be my entry plan. If we can just come down a little bit more. I just bought a little bit now, just a second ago, with a market order, just where we currently are. Well, one of the order books, one of the sell orders in the order books. I got a little bit, but I'm going to buy much more. If we can just get down a little bit more, that would be my game plan. Get down there, execute a buy order, set a stop loss just 2% or maybe a little less than 2% below my entry. And now I have a medium low risk trade where at most I lose 1.8, 1.9, maybe 2%. And if it does manage to get back above the trendline resistance that's holding this thing down, then we're seeing a really strong potential reversal given that 4-hour model. You get that wedge cleaned up too. Much tighter if you're down here looking at the hourly model. The 4-hour model looks so strong. Like so strong. One of these. All right, I'm exhausted. Were there any other questions? Would you explain that define space? They don't have many coins, but they're going up. Where's the money in staking those coins and hoping? DeFi. Well, the best way to make money in DeFi is getting into these projects that are just exploding in popularity, because you can buy the tokens themselves and make a shit ton of money when those tokens go up 100x because so many people are buying them after you. That's obviously the biggest way to make money. Staking is a good way to make money as well, especially if you're getting into the ones that are more popular and more established and not the newer ones that just appeared out of nowhere. If you're using Uniswap, for instance, which is quite popular, even though there are a lot of Ethereum fee issues, it's quite stable, and as long as the market remains even remotely bullish, those prices aren't going down. In fact, you're probably going to outperform most of the altcoin market, so you really can't go wrong by staking. There's still a lot of risk inherently in doing what staking essentially is, where you're tying up your capital. So I usually tell people, you want to diversify your overall strategies. You might only want to put 20% of your capital into staking DeFi tokens because of the risks involved. Yeah. Do I have a play in Tomo too? No. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking on DeFi. That's the way to go about it. Staking is good as long as you limit how much you're putting into it. Just keep in mind, if you only have like $5,000 to trade with and you have 5,000 in cake tokens and you stake it, you're not going to make that much. It's not going to be worth it. You're better off using that capital to trade it up and increase your bankroll. All right, again, I'm super tired, so I'm going to call it a night. I want to keep cycling through these because I just want to see if I can find one or two other trades that are worth the risk. With Bitcoin looking at a potential correction, I don't really want to get into anything else, but some of them are starting to look pretty nice. That's my other. Oh no, it wasn't a 10x. It was only a 400% x. So 400% run. Now more than that. So my MPXS, my more recent trades are doing incredibly well. I wouldn't get in now at this point. That would just be FOMO. So I'm just jumping down through all these, and I'm still not seeing. I mean, it looks like my correction call so far is perfect on Bitcoin. If that holds, it'll be a good thing I didn't get into any other altcoins. But I must admit, at least that one trade on MTL really does look good. So, all right, I'm going to call it a night. Last call, if anybody has one or two more questions you want me to take before I let you go, because there are some people who aren't in the group here who don't usually get to do this, because usually my live streams are only for the group. So if there is anybody in here who has a quick question, speak now or forever hold your peace. Yeah, all these are all a little bit too high. I can't get into these. But there's a good example with like Uni. Uni would have been a good one to buy right on the 55 EMA. So, is that my GTO setup that I didn't get into? Or Doge? Oh, this was my Doge call from today to the group. How about that? Talk about precision. Again, my model is like for people who aren't in the group. Look at this. All these rejections from the 99 and 55 EMA. Then we reversed. Ichima reversed. We went Ichima positive, meaning we're above the Ichima dynamic supports. We break above the cloud. The top of the cloud is the main support. Then the 55 EMA becomes the main support until eventually we get a cloud wall trending up on the cloud, which launches us up and propels us up for a 15% breakout. Called flawlessly. Now that looks like that's going to correct a bit. I'm actually just going to go tell the group I'm going to dump my short-term Doge position here, and I'm going to hold my long-term position. So I'm going to sell it and close this trade out and to walk away with roughly 11% profit or so. Keeping my term bag open. All right, that's it. I'm going to call it a night. Nobody else posted any other questions, right? Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Happy to help. If you want to join the group, man, hit me up anytime. For those who don't know, if you're in the premium group, like you can get me on the phone. We could do a quick call, talk about strategy, or if you have some questions about TA, or if you want me to explain how something works, or if you wanted to share some of your trade ideas with me and get my immediate feedback. I don't know of any other group out there that does that where an analyst is that accessible where they can get on the phone. I really, really love doing this shit, man. Like, I'm obsessed with it. So if you ask anybody in my premium group, when my kids were born, I just couldn't be active in the group. So there were a lot of guys back then who were pissed. But other than that period, I don't think any premium member has ever had a single complaint about the group, except for that one time when I wasn't really active and everybody was mad at me. But all right, everybody, I appreciate you coming. I'm going to do another free live stream. I really like doing them every once in a while. I don't do them often enough. And I like to give you guys as much free content as I can because, there's a lot of paid groups out there and it's hard to know who to trust. So given the fact that people inherently trust me because I've never been anonymous and all that shit, I like to share free stuff and I like to give you guys what you need so you can get started until you can eventually get to the point where you're ready to join a group where you need somebody to teach you and mentor you, and then you can hit me up. But I want you to at least have some tools that you can begin learning on your own so you don't have to pay somebody just to get started. You can take those first few steps on your own with some free educational material, and then when you're ready to make that step, I'm there. Anyway, if you guys need me, make sure you're in my Telegram and Discord and everything, and DM me anytime. I'm always around. Thanks for stopping by. And I'll do another update in a bit, and I'll follow up on my BTC analysis that we went over. We'll see if I am right or wrong. Let's hope for the former. Catch you next time.